Welcome to Doing What Works, Innovations in Homeless Services, the podcast that takes a closer look at one of our community's most urgent challenges. I'm your host, Ashanti Blaze Hopkins, Interim Associate Dean at Santa Monica College's Center for Media and Design. Each episode will engage with experts, policymakers, and educators to uncover the history, explore effective policies, and highlight the efforts of those working to create change. Joining us on the podcast today is someone who knows firsthand about the impact of homelessness. For him, the impactful work he does and has continued to do in the homeless services sector is personal, as he himself experienced homelessness as a youth. He has a bachelor's degree in political science with a concentration in international relations and a doctorate in education, both from UCLA. Go Bruins! Currently, he is the president and chief executive officer of St. Joseph Center, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide working poor families as well as homeless men, women, and children with the resources and tools they need to become productive, stable, and self-supporting. Dr. Ryan Smith, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So our first question for every one of our Doing What Works podcast guests is always the same. What was your first job ever, and how does what you learned in that position inform doing what works for you in your current role?
Oh, I love this question, and excited to be here with you today. And I love to start at kind of the beginning of my career. My first job was a youth organizer. I was 15 years old, and I got a fellowship in South Los Angeles to help organize and educate other youth on how they can advance their power, their understanding of policy, their understanding of change. So I literally knocked on doors. I went to high schools. I talked to folks, particularly people my age, about the history of activism and civil rights and the social justice movements that have preceded us, and how we can continue to do that good work moving forward. And honestly, it was that fellowship that has led to my career of really giving back and thinking about how we support marginalized communities.
15 years old is such a young age and in a formative age. So to be able to do that work that soon, I'm sure really just ripple effect throughout your entire career.
Absolutely. You know, my parents really believed in the value of community, and they actually believe in this idea of linked fate. They taught me really early that no matter what you do in life, you can never really be successful if your brothers, your sisters, your communities, people who look like you fail. So real success is collective success, making sure that whole communities are vibrant, are active, are engaged, not just thinking of yourself individually. And that has really left an impression upon me and continues to do so at my role here at the St. Joseph Center.
I mentioned in your intro that the work you do is very personal. Can you talk to us about your experience with homelessness as a youth and how that led you to the work that you've done and that you continue to do now?
Yeah, I appreciate this question. As we're celebrating Women's History Month, when folks ask me, who do I honor during this month, it's really my mother. When my mother and father separated, it was my mother who took care of me, and she did everything possible to thrive. A brilliant woman who, spent her life savings to move from South Los Angeles to Culver City because she heard the schools were good and that young Black men could go to college from the high school and thrive. So she spent all she had. Was able to, have a really amazing home that she raised me in. And we had that home for 10 years until I came home as a high school student and saw an eviction notice and saw in my mother's eyes sadness as she handed me trash bags and told me the home that we had made in 10 years, we'd have to vacate in 10 hours. I will never forget the experience of having to take all of my belongings, all the things that we treasured, put them in bags and whatever we had, and put them in my car. And, my mother and I drove around and till she found a neighbor and asked them, hey, can you open up your home for me and my son to potentially live in your living room, or if you have a spare room, I'd like Ryan to finish high school in the community that he lives in. And if it wasn't for that dear neighbor, I probably wouldn't be here. And if it wasn't for my assistant principal and counselor who pulled resources so that I could apply to college, I may not be a Bruin that went to UCLA, both undergrad and graduates, as a graduate student. So what I can say is that I believe in the power of community, of a continuum of care, of people wrapping their arms around you in the spirit of beloved community. And I'm a product of what happens when people live into the values of charism, compassion, and upholding your dear neighbor.
I can hear how proud you are of your mother. I am almost insanely sure that she is equally proud of you and everything that you've been able to accomplish, under circumstances that weren't ideal, in the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, I will say that, and I thank you for that. I am very proud of my mom. There's not many folks who could do what she did, and I'm here because of her. I will say now, she lives with me, and she suffers from some behavioral health challenges, and I am her caretaker. So, I get to pay back the care that she showed for me as well, and I think that's so much embedded in the work that we do to solve and end homelessness is really thinking about how we center care in our work. So this is both, to your point, a professional mission of mine, but certainly a personal one as well.
I think it is kind of embedded in you to be a caretaker, in the fact that it connects to the work that you do makes so much sense. I want to talk about the St. Joseph Center. There are four pillars that your organization kind of lives by. Take me through those pillars and how that kind of approach differentiates your organization from others that are doing this work in the space.
Yeah, I'll be truthful. There's nothing that makes me more excited and energized than to talk about my beloved St. Joseph Center, because of its rich history and because of the work that it does. So St. Joseph Center was founded nearly 50 years ago by some really dynamic social justice centered sisters. And when I say sisters, I do mean nuns, who taken social justice classes and believe that they couldn't just learn about the work, they had to be about it, that we had to empower communities through the belief of hope and charisma and compassion. So they purchased a storefront in Venice, which became the headquarters back then. And now we thrive 50 years later, supporting 15,000 people across LA County. As you mentioned, we have four pillars to do that work. They spell out home. One is our housing pillar. So we think about the entire throughput of housing that we support. We support a number of interim housing facilities through permanent housing facilities as well. In our belief that we want to ensure that every Angelino has a place that they permanently call home, in our pursuit to end homelessness. The O stands for outreach and engagement. We cannot solve this issue if we do not meet people where they are at. So I have an amazing team of ambassadors, registered nurses, folks who have experience in homelessness themselves, who go out throughout the day, even at nighttime, to give the folks who are outside the resources they need in order to come inside, as well as the resources they need to thrive. And I am always really honored. I've been out with those teams, and they really are doing life-saving work day in and day out. So shout out to the amazing outreach team. M stands for mental health support. I don't think, given all the things that are happening across the country right now, there's nothing more valuable in my mind that we are thinking about the mental health of people, how we are ensuring that their physical and mental health needs are met. And we have folks who are therapists, who are licensed, who are specialists, who have dedicated their life to bring those resources to people experiencing homelessness. And I have to say, they could work any place else and get paid twice as much, but they dedicated their lives to help address this issue. And we're really lucky to have those heroes who work with us. And then E just stands for economic mobility. We have dynamic workforce development programs really dedicated to bringing high quality jobs to people who've experienced homelessness. We have 75,000 people outside. Why are we not talking about how we provide jobs as well as homes for those folks? So we have the Dynamic Bread and Roses Culinary Institute that trains the next cohort of amazing culinary artists and creative artists who are doing work across the food sector in Los Angeles. We have an amazing Cold Talk program that supports women experiencing homelessness, learning technical skills, adaptive skills, learning the soft and hard skills so they can thrive. I know folks who are working in tech right now, and one young woman is a graduate, and now she's a donor of ours. She's probably making more money than all of us on this podcast. But experienced homelessness and went through our cohort, which is really amazing. We also have a program very similar called Fortify, which provides coding skills to people who are formerly incarcerated. So the workforce work, the economic mobility work is really important as well. So those are our 4 pillars. Home.
When you think about the 2 social justice nuns that created this center, and, I understand that they are still around, so they do have an opportunity to come back and be able to see how their vision has evolved through time. What do they feel about how the St. Joseph Center has been able to grow and change and evolve with time and with the needs of the populations that you serve?
Oh, what a brilliant question. So the founding order of ours, they're the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. So that congregation of sisters still exists. Our 2 founders were Sisters Louise Bernstein and Sisters Marilyn Rudy. Unfortunately, Sister Marilyn Rudy did pass, but Sister Louise Bernstein is 96 years old. And one thing I will tell you about sisters, about nuns, they all look very young for their age. I was walking with one of them, and she was walking a little faster than me. And I was like, "Oh, that's really amazing." I was like, exactly, how old are you?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm a spry 80. I said, 80 years old. And they say, the sister nun life is good. And I have to say, given the time I've spent with the sisters, that it must be. But they really are our pride and joy for a couple of reasons. One, once again, this is Women's History Month. We would not be here without the foundation that these amazing women laid. They laid a foundation that was absolutely connected to community and to making sure that we provide hope through empowerment. They created that tagline, which is still our tagline today. They created our logo, which is an amazing tree with its roots that we still have. But they kind of are connected to where my life started, where my parents said we can't be successful if our communities fail, and they believe that as well, and have really made their lives dedicated to charism and compassion. So when they just came back last week and they hung out, had a good time, the staff embraced them and hugged them and thanked them for all the work they do. They hold me accountable. They text me every week like, "Hey, we're making sure we're doing the good work." I said, "Absolutely, sisters, we are." But they are they are like our beacon on a hill to remind us to continue to do the work. We're really fortunate to be working in partnership with them.
It's nice to have that gut check on a regular basis, I'm sure. The work your organization does day to day, it's not easy work, right? But I'm sure it's both challenging and rewarding. What drives you and your team to keep doing that work, overcoming the barriers, and just showing up each day for the populations that you serve?
Yeah, this is where I have to shout out our staff. So we have 400 staff who are really committed to ending homelessness in this generation. And I would love to say we pay them as much as they should get paid and all of that, but as many nonprofits face, they could probably work someplace else, but they work here because they're really dedicated to the mission. 63% of our staff, when surveyed, have experienced homelessness themselves or are formerly incarcerated. So we're asking, it's the folks who have actually had to go through this system and came out of it who are ending this issue. And to your point, it's not easy. You are, as much as we are seeing progress, we know there's more to come. And we are the coordinated entry service lead for SPA 5. And last year we saw a 19% decrease in homelessness in the region that we support. And that is because of the amazing work of staff and partners who are dedicated to this work. But we know there's more work to do. So I do think part of our work is celebrating where we see success, but continuing to shine a light on where we need where we need to see progress as well. We do this work through kind of a fierce urgency and determination that we can bring everyone inside. And this staff leans on each other. They often say, we are a family here. And I say, oh, I don't know, but some people don't say family anymore when it comes to work. And they correct me. They say, no. We are a family really dedicated and committed to solving this issue. So I'm lucky to work with the staff that I have. I just want to shout them out. Thank you for all that you do every day, the life-saving work that you do.
I think this is a good time to bring up Santa Monica College and its homeless services program. When did you first hear about it, and what was your reaction to seeing a program like this at a community college that is aimed at training the workforce that's needed for homeless services?
Yeah, so I had heard about the program through a number of colleagues who said, "Hey, you should really learn more about how we're creating a pipeline of talent to go into homeless services." Leapy, who is a fantastic faculty member, as well as Elisa Arduino, were like, "You should come speak at one of the classes." And finally, I got my schedule together so I could go. First of all, it was great since, growing up on the West Side, there's so many people who went to SMC. So to be on the campus, a campus that I had been to as a youth, was great. But what really was fantastic and amazing were the students. Those students come from careers across different sectors, come from different backgrounds. Some of them have done work in homelessness, some have not. But they said, we want the skills, the knowledge necessary to receive a certificate in how to address homelessness and end homelessness in our generation. They were fantastic. They asked me the right questions, the hard ones. Like, well, tell us what's really going on. They talked about their aspirations in doing this work. And the great thing about this program, including the students, is we have to build the workforce we want. The idea that we can just continue to recruit folks, but honestly, we have to find the people who are already excited about this and help build their capacity to make sure that this movement continues. So that SMC has been so smart in carving out space to make sure that we're putting in the kind of love and care necessary to create the next wave of leaders is right on. We need more of this program. I was happy to be a part of it in the small way that I was.
It's really the intentionality, too, that I think is so critical. I mean, how important is it to have a homeless services program like the one at SMC be duplicated at not just community colleges across California, but across the country?
Yeah, Shanti, I'm glad you asked that question. So we need more places where we're training human service leaders and homelessness service leaders. We have a program called Careers for a Cause, where we work with some of our Compton and Southwest students to think about this pipeline as well. But what's really important is that we're recruiting folks who have experience in the workforce already, folks who may be mid-level, who are thinking critically about their next steps. Because we come from a community where we can be somewhat humble about the work that we do, right? I talked about the sisters, but at the end of the day, we're only going to solve this through the work of people. It's people who, so we are not in the business of widgets. We're in the business of making sure people thrive, that in changing lives, and you're only as good as the people who work within the communities. So we need this to be replicated. We need a bigger base of people who understand the landscape, have the knowledge, have the passion it takes to do this work. And as us old timers gray and we get a little tired and we want to pass the torch, there's already folks who are ready to carry the torch, are probably carrying the torch too, so that we continue to do this work. I believe we can end homelessness in this generation, but we need the people dedicated to that mission to do so.
It's really about succession planning, really, isn't it? From an organizational perspective. How are we making sure there's a pipeline of folks to keep moving up as other people start to graduate out of the sector? As someone who has been a leader in homeless services for quite some time, in addition to your own personal experiences, what do you think LA is doing well when it comes to addressing the issue of homelessness in this area? And what could we be doing better? What are some areas for potential growth?
Yeah, so what I do think LA is doing well is there feels like there has been a locking of arms and a call to action to bring as many people inside as possible. So we've seen our mayor and our county supervisors and local municipalities all begin to say, well, what are our collective goals? What can we be doing together to solve this issue? Understanding that this is, that this issue is solved at the local ground level, but we have to work together and break down silos to do so. So I think LA really stands as a beacon on the hill on thinking programmatically about how we're bringing people inside. We've seen more interim housing come online. We've seen more permanent supportive housing that's coming online as well. There have been a number of policies passed, like ED1 and others, that make it easier to build affordable housing. So we're seeing a movement and traction that way, which is really exciting. I will say a highlight is LA County passed Measure A. Thank you, LA County, which doubled the revenue in order to ensure that we have the dollars necessary to keep doing the homeless service work, but also to move upstream, to think about prevention dollars that are needed, to think about housing production that's really necessary for us to end this, because we do need the resources necessary to make this happen. So, we have some things in motion that are really exciting. And we've seen a decrease in homelessness across LA County and LA City. That being said, I think as we're looking at the aftermath of the wildfires that has displaced folks, whether it's Eaton, where we're looking in Pasadena and Altadena, or we're looking in the Palisades, which is close to Santa Monica, we know now that there's an inflection point about how we build and rebuild our city. And I think this is the point where LA leaders can lock arms with our nonprofit and community stewards to go, how can we reimagine what LA can be when we're talking about addressing homelessness? When we think about the resources from the Olympics and other world events that will come, this is an opportunity to think differently about our future. And I hope we leverage this opportunity amongst the challenges that we have in front of us to really do the community building, the holistic equity work, as well as the physical building necessary to ensure that everyone has a place to call home.
You mentioned your goal of eliminating homelessness within your lifetime. What do you think it's going to take to get there? And can we get there?
Yeah, I mean, so I believe we can. It is a tall order, but I believe we can, absolutely. One, we have to continue to push our production of affordable housing and permanent supportive housing across Los Angeles. At the end of the day, when we talk about permanent supportive housing, talking about the housing that has all the wraparound services necessary for folks who experience homelessness, to sustain housing, we need to ensure that we have more PSH sites across the county. Also, affordable housing has to actually be affordable. We know that there are many affordable housing projects that don't set aside enough for truly affordable housing for folk and that people can access easily, particularly low-income folks. And it's becoming more unaffordable to live in Los Angeles. So we have to redefine what affordability is. And we also have to ensure that we have enough affordable housing that people aren't falling into homelessness. So that's important. The other thing is prevention, prevention, prevention. In order to end homelessness, we need to prevent it. So a lot of our work is downstream. We're working on folks who already are experiencing homelessness, but our work should be really also centered upstream for the folks who are on the margins, for people who are 2 paychecks away, for folks who maybe if they just had more rental assistance, if they just had more mental health supports, if they just had more problem-solving supports, they may not experience homelessness. So our work has to move upstream. We have to think more about prevention. The great thing is that Measure A almost quadrupled the amount of money to support prevention efforts, but we need to do more of that work, and we need more resources to ensure that we're preventing homelessness as well.
What advice would you give to someone considering a career in homeless services? And what do you wish you knew before you started your work in this sector?
If I had to give someone advice, one is it's not an easy job, right? We are supporting folks who are chronically homeless, who have experienced trauma. So it's not an easy job, but it's a rewarding job. Meaning, when you're able to give someone their keys, a family, their keys to say, you have struggled for a long time, but this is the place that you can permanently call home. Here is your welcome mat that you will welcome your neighbors to. I know you've toiled, but this is the place in which you can call yourself safe. Like, that is a feeling you will never forget. And I have so many staff members who lift up their success stories of helping someone get their keys home. So it is rewarding to do that work. It's a powerful testament in the belief that we can help change lives. So the work is rewarding, and it's needed now more than ever in Los Angeles. This is ground zero for this effort. So to do the work around the number one probably humanitarian crisis we've seen in our lifetime, and to work towards changing that, is really a call to action. The other thing maybe I would say, and I'll try not to get emotional here, but I am a person of faith. I believe in the power of faith. And, when I prayed about what I could do in my lifetime to give back, the first thing that came to me was this idea of beloved community. How can you do this with people? Because at the end of the day, I believe in this idea that we belong to each other. And I am at a place at St. Joseph Center where people really do have each other's backs and sides and fronts. They ask how you're doing. They decorated, I had to take down all the balloons. They decorated my entire office for my birthday, and just said happy birthday. And they do that for each other. Like, you really can't do this work alone. And so much of this work is done in community. And I'm fortunate to do that. So if you're looking for a community making change, I really believe Homeless Services is a great place to start.
To join the beloved community, really, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Ryan Smith, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and expertise with us. And thank you for joining us on Doing What Works, Innovations in Homeless Services. We hope today's conversation has shed light on the complexities of homelessness and inspired ideas for change. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Together, we can continue the dialogue and support the efforts to create lasting solutions. Stay tuned for more insights from the experts leading the way. Until next time.